ones are in good health. My name is Kirtana and I volunteer with NHRD. I would like to welcome the panel members and the audience to the NHRD panel discussion on future of HR. The topics of the future of HR series are drawn from the NHRD research thought paper on the priorities of HR in the coming decade. Today is the second of the five-part series of the panel discussion on future of HR, which is scheduled at 3 p.m. on 5 consecutive Saturdays. We will have 20 HR experts who will share their experiences and thoughts on the future of HR. Today, the panelists will discuss on culture, purpose, and social impact and how it's becoming increasing core to business and employee value proposition. The format for today's discussion is 40 minutes of panel discussion followed by 15 minutes of Q&A. I request the audience to please key in the questions in the YouTube chat window. I am very happy to inform you all that we have a surprise guest speaker on the panel with us today. It is a great privilege and honor to have him on the panel discussion. I would like to welcome Krish Shankar, Group Head, Human Resources at Infosys, and also Honorable President of National HR Network to the session today. Over to you, Krish. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and good afternoon, friends. Good to catch up with all of you here today. I think this topic was pretty close to many of our hearts, in the sense that, and just a quick word on why this is becoming very important. What we did was we did a bit of a research with NHRD, and we looked at, and we polled, let's say about 100 and 120 odd leaders in terms of what are some of the challenges that they see and what are some of the priorities that they see in the future. And when we looked at that, I think 2 or 3 things really jumped out. There are lots of change happening. Technology changes in the attitudes of people, changes in how organizations are going to respond in the fast changing world. But if you look at the number of changes that are there, and if you go further slide, the next slide, you will find that there are 2 or 3 key things that are happening. Yeah. Now, when we did this, we also did the same research post-COVID and said, let's identify what has COVID done to these changes. Clearly, the first change that people found was most important was this need for continuous skilling, skilling and reskilling. That was, and because the career paradigms were changing. So that was number 1. But number 2 on that list of the most important changes that HR has to see in the next few years is this whole focus on purpose and culture. Because I think what we found was more and more employees wanted to see something meaningful. Yeah? They wanted to do meaningful roles. They wanted to make an impact. And this thing about purpose became important. Also, organizations had to really think of purpose as a more, what do you call, a completely aligning force, something to get people together, something to focus on much larger than the goals. And I think most organizations are talking about purpose and culture. So I think what we now come to kind of understand based on all our research is this is going to be very critical. Organizations that are going to articulate their purpose and to ensure that the individual purpose of employees are met and build the right culture will be more successful in the future. So that's what it is. But it's easier said than done. We can all talk about it, but it's not that easy. And that's why we thought we'll get together 4 key people who've been through many of these, from very different industries and very different backgrounds. And each of them have seen this in action. And what we're going to do is talk to them and hear from them in terms of what are organizations doing as we look into the future. If we have to build a purposeful organization, if we have to really tap into the individual purpose that people have and build a culture around that, what should organizations do? Yeah, so that's the question for us today. So we have a great set of people. I don't need to introduce any of them. I think they're all well known, but I just quickly go around. We have Arif Aziz, who is the kind of CHRO of Diageo. Again, in Bangalore, and one of the people who's like a thought leader, who's kind of, lots of interesting ideas and thoughts. We also have Shibu David, who's the head of HR of GE India, and now she's the head of HR for Asia Pacific for GE Renewables. Again, someone who's been in GE for a long time with very great insights and thoughts. We have Sunit Sinha from Accenture. He heads HR for Accenture Consulting in Asia Pacific. And Accenture is another company from the tech and the consulting space, which has really done a lot of work in this area. And last but not the least is Yash Mahadik. I think many of us know him very well. Yash is the CHRO of Lupin. He's worked in many organizations before, Johnson and Johnson, Philips, Sun Pharma, and before that Colgate. So he's again somebody who's got a phenomenal experience all across. All of them come from different industries. So I'm just going to ask them each to take a first couple of minutes to talk about what are some of the things that they've seen being done in their organizations or others, just to bring this whole purpose and culture alive. Let's start with Arif first. Arif, over to you.
Thanks, Krish. So, folks, we are in the spirits business, as you all know, Diageo. And the purpose which Diageo has is celebration of life. When I joined the company, and I had a long stint, work very closely with Chibu and GE, my view was that, now I'm changing and moving from a company which is solving world's problem and moving to a company which is all about fun, and it's about really enjoying life per se. And which is true, it's about fun. But I think one of the things which I've realized in the last 2 years, the purpose of celebration of life is more holistic. It's about life as a whole. Fun is an element to it, but it's also about the communities we work in. It's also about the set of people who are around us and what difference we bring to their life. Diageo has done a lot of thinking around really helping individuals discover their own purpose and bring it to reality at the company itself. I'll share an example, and I think some of these stories come together when there's an example or a situation which we deal with. So when this entire COVID situation struck, we all were, grappling like, all of us on how do we make sure that our employees are safe. At the same time, how do we make sure our business is protected and, our, business continues to move forward and continues to run. At some point in time, almost everything came to a halt. So then it was just about safety of employees. And I remember a conversation where a few of our employees in our crisis management meeting actually came and said, guys, our purpose is celebration of life, and which is about protecting the communities. And we really feel for the communities we are in. And today, the real community we need to address in terms of providing a helping hand is actually the medical community. We have got this ethyl neutral alcohol, which is lying in so many of our plants, and which is a significant input to hand sanitizers. Why don't we actually repurpose our manufacturing and make hand sanitizers for the healthcare community? And it was unbelievable. We thought, how would you do it? What would it entail? You have to change the entire manufacturing process. Then how do you sanitize, desanitize lines after this process? How do you make sure what you produce is as per quality standards and so on? All those natural questions came to us. And it was so relieving. These employees said, can you just leave it to us and we will make it happen? And, for all of us, it was such a pleasant surprise. Within 5 days of idea coming to us, to, people going forward with process steps and so on, we had the first bottle of hand sanitizer out of our Goa manufacturing plant. And this team of people then took this idea across multiple of our plants. We ended up making more than 500,000 liters of hand sanitizers, and we actually provided it to the medical community. The reason I thought, this example and story was an eye-opener for all of us was, when you look at purpose, a lot of us get lost on this is organization's purpose, and we need to live that purpose. The fact that our employees related their purpose, their own individual purpose, to make a connection to the organization's purpose and bring it to life was such a powerful statement from our employees, and actually made a lot of us learn from them. So what I would say is we have made baby steps and taken many other steps after this experience, and even before that, on how do we really help our employees discover their purpose and bring it to life. And making that happen can completely unleash significant opportunities for the business. From then on to now, Our employee engagement scores are the highest ever. Despite all the challenges we have faced in last few months, not just with the benchmark, but globally as well. And this story has become a story which has helped a lot of our global business setups come and learn from Diageo India on how we can really unleash the power of employees. So I'm going to stop here, Krish. I think it's about making employees discover their purpose and living it versus mirroring, their efforts to organizational purpose is what our learning has been.
Thanks, Arif. I think that's a very good way to put it, in the sense that individual employees have their purpose, and how does the organization really provide the opportunity for them to live that? I think that's the key thing. Thank you, Shibu. Over to you. Your thoughts on what organizations can do, and from your experience. Over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Krish. So I'm a huge Simon Sinek fan. So I always start with why. And when it comes to the organization purpose, you definitely start with why, because that is what's defining the whole thing. So in G, we basically start by saying that why do we exist? So G's purpose is rising to the challenge of building a world that works. And that transcends into what we do in aviation, what we do in energy, and what we do in healthcare. And all of these three segments would have their own specific purpose definitions of why that particular business segment exists. From that why, we also come to what, which actually is the strategy blueprint that we do for the next 3 to 5 years, and the culture of the organization. So the why is the purpose, the what is the strategy and the culture, and the how is where we come to the priorities. So the example I wanted to give you was basically during COVID and even before COVID, we are known for relentlessly driving through our priorities. And that's how we connect each and every individual to the organization's purpose. We ensure that they have the clarity of how their work is connected to the big picture, which is like, what's the meaning of the work I do? What's the purpose of this? That they have a challenge, that they feel that there's mastery to what they're doing and they're adding value to themselves. And the final one is the whole clarity that they have, that what do I need to do and what are the resources available for me? Now, this sounds very easy, but actually a priority setting exercise takes its own lot of effort. But through the year, we go into having frequent check-ins, the support they need. There are enough pivots and adjustments which we need to do around this. In fact, one big exercise that we took on right after COVID, because some of our businesses had to go on steroids, which was like healthcare. And some of our businesses, we were just talking just before this, like aviation, it's a business which was doing extremely well. And we talk a lot about how COVID hit some industries like hospitality or tourism. One business which did get hit was aviation and travel industry. And if the planes don't fly, our engines are not getting used, and hence services is not happening, or people are not buying new engines. So a whole lot of that puts the organization in a spin. So how do you go back and ensure that those priorities are still meaningful and are connected with what the strategy is? So there was a lot of effort which was done around that. Another example I would give you about how an organization purpose would spur or spark an individual's purpose is what we've done on rural electrification. It's something done on an individual's discretionary time. It was clearly where the why was clear, the what was clear. It was not part of their priorities. And it was something where a group of people from the research team and the power and renewables team got together and said that there's such a large population in this country who do not have the benefit of electrification. What can we do to create that accessibility for them? Can we come up with certain solutions, which we do on our discretionary time, and they really burnt, to say the midnight oil when they're looking at electrification, the irony, but they really worked to make sure that it was something which was available. They worked with the commercial teams to ensure that this was something which was available at price points for the specific governments to work on. And that's how your individual purpose can also be sparked up by the organization purpose. So I will leave it at that right now, Krish.
Oh, thank you, Shivu. I think that's great. Two great examples that you have here. One is how you can take the organization purpose and link it to the individual's goals through a process. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about that. And secondly, how do you really provide the opportunity for people to take the organization purpose and through their own initiative try and meet that? Yeah. So that's great. Thanks. Sunit, over to you. Your thoughts now.
Thanks, Krish. And great to hear some interesting examples and stories from both Arif and Shibu. Let me add a flavor to this, which is both in terms of what we do in Accenture on this whole thing of purpose. And also, I'll add a little bit in my working with clients across industries, at least in this part of the world in Asia. What are some things that I've started seeing in the recent past? And I must say that I was not surprised at all, Chris, when I saw the ranking of two on the purpose, culture, and social impact was number two, right up there before COVID and even after you did the survey when you did the check. So first, because it's becoming more and more relevant, and I think we've discovered this ourselves in Accenture over the past, I would say, half a decade, and it's been a journey for us. Where if you think about it, we're almost like a large conglomerate of different client service businesses. I mean, we call them service groups in our jargon. So there's the strategy and consulting business, which I'm a part of. We have colleagues in technology, we have colleagues in our operations or outsourcing business, and we also have interactive, which is all about our experience design, innovation, and digital marketing. Now, it looks very simple from the outside, but if I think about it, it's almost 500,000 people across the globe. And one of the things we realized was that more and more our workforce, and I don't know remember the exact number, but I think 80 to 90% of those people that we have are probably under the age of 35, and the average age is probably 27 or 28. Now, that's the large part of our workforce. And one of the things we've realized over time is that more and more of our people want to work for what I would say is the why. They want the answer to the why question. What I do today, how does it impact? What are the extended and maybe sometimes unintended consequences of the work that I do? I think that question keeps coming up in a lot of our pulse surveys, our internal engagement discussions, our leadership town halls, etc. So recently, I would say it's been a journey of a couple of years, we started thinking beyond what typically has been okay, here's our vision, here's our mission, and here's the set of values that we've had, and we've had those for a while, is the fact that, if we were to look at the why we exist. So being in a client servicing business, in a servicing business, we obviously serve our clients and by extension the communities around us. So we came up with this purpose statement for Accenture at a global level, which is around driving innovation to improve the way the world works and lives. Now, oftentimes you would think that in a consulting technology firm should have something different, but we realize that at the core of what we're trying to do is trying to help the world, improve in terms of both work life and what it does. And what we've done is just to kind of delve further on the journey, we said, okay, it's good to have it at a global level, but how do you really make it palpable for an individual to be able to touch and feel it and make it more tangible? We said, okay, this needs to start working for what Accenture India may be doing, what we may be doing in Africa, what we may be doing in other parts of the world. So we got it down to that level. And today there is a term which our CEO who took over last year, Julie Sweet, she's been evangelizing this a lot. And in fact, we spoke about it extensively at Davos this year. Is we want to become what is called a responsible business, and I'll talk about it a little bit more later. But it's at the heart of it is purpose. Is the fact that when you, as a business, as an organization, the why has to be answered not just for what you do directly for your shareholders and your people, or in our case, our clients, but also in terms of an extended stakeholder community. It could be the communities you're working in, the societies that you impact, the countries you're based in. There's an element of obviously clients for us. There's an element of technology there, and we've tried to actually articulate it in terms of, okay, what does this mean? What does this purpose statement actually mean? So that's an exercise we've done extensively over the last 2 years. Simple example, since we work a lot in technology, I'm myself not a technologist, but then today, it's all pervasive and impacts all of us. One of the things that we're driving is that, whether we're doing it for ourselves or for our clients, the whole element of AI. artificial intelligence and how it's driving automation is the fact that how are we doing responsible AI or ethical AI as we call it? Because we all know that it's as good as the algorithms that are made, and there could be biases that sometimes inadvertently creep in. That's one example. The other example we've done is that we've actually started pretty much a championing of this, and it's starting to pervade our metrics and our trainings for starting with our leaders and cascading down in something called that. How do you think of a fee of consequences which is beyond what you typically are responsible for as a business leader? You think about your obvious metrics of profitability, and you think of your metrics of impact, etc., even for your people and shareholders. But how you think of the extended and the unintended consequences of some of the work that you do? And recently, we've started talking to clients about it. And there are 6 or 7 themes that we've identified. Things around the fact that, it's great to drive efficiency through automation, but then are you also thinking about the upskilling and reskilling agenda? It's great to think of AI, but are you thinking of what impact it may have in terms of displacement of the workforce? It's great to think of some really great solutions in terms of energy and renewables, but then are you creating sustainable supply chains along with it? And the industries that are getting displaced, what are we going to do with the workforces over there? Green IT, inclusion. I think I can go on and on about this, but that's really what we're thinking about. And at the heart of it is it's about the purpose. It goes back to the purpose, the fact that where for a long time we were recognized as the guys who were high performance delivered. That was our tagline for a long time. So if you would have noticed, we slowly kind of retired it without making a big hoo about it. And now it's all about innovation and help driving that innovation to make the world a better place to both live and work. So that's how we're trying to live that journey, both for ourselves and most importantly for our clients. Chris.
Okay. Thanks, Sunit. I think that is good. I think I'll come back to you later and maybe understand if a company were to really think of putting together a purpose, what are some things they need to really keep in mind? Yeah, thanks. Okay, Yash has again got an illustrious career, but the last couple of years with Lupin with COVID and as a pharma company has been at the front end of many things. And it'll be very good to hear from Yash about this whole thing. Yash, over to you.
Thank you, Krish. Thank you very much. And thanks a lot to the fellow panelists. I was listening to you very attentively and it's amazing. Yeah. So, the purpose of existence for any organization and research has shown that it is pivotal, to whatever we do. So I'm not going to talk about much of the importance of that. But what's important is that any organization which has a very clear purpose of existence, how does that organization and its leadership go around evolving, building, and executing the business processes or people processes which are actually built around that pivot of the purpose of existence? So let me give you an example. So at Lupin, for us, our purpose of existence is very clear. It's to make a very positive difference to patients' lives. Okay, is to enhance their quality of living. Okay, is to cure them of illness and diseases and sickness. Okay, that's our purpose of existence. Okay, and it's such a beautiful purpose of existence. Now, one of the fundamental beliefs that I have, Krish, which I've seen, and that's why I've been fortunate to work for such great companies which have had great purpose of existence, is your purpose of existence has to be fundamentally good for the society. Okay. Now, you can't have a purpose of existence which is harming the society. Okay. So say, for example, if you had a business which works around trophy hunting, okay. Now, it may be legal, but I'm not sure how does trophy hunting business does good to the society or to the environment, right? So it's very difficult for me to comprehend. But when you're working for companies, such as Lupin, your purpose of existence is so good that it naturally allows you to attract talent, which in a surrogate manner want to do good to the society. Okay, that's it. But if you don't dovetail that purpose of existence with your strategy creation or strategy evolution, or even tactical stuff, such as employee engagement, employee experience building, it makes no sense, and that's where it becomes very important. So let me give you an example. So there are so many, HR colleagues and leaders like ours and their CEOs who talk a lot about building superior employee experience. Now, let me tell you, that to me is a lag factor. If you as a company have become adept or become skilled and capable of building superior customer experience, it becomes a skill for an organization. Then building an employee experience that is superior just becomes your second nature. Okay. So the ability to build something superior for your end customer, which is based around your purpose, is the core. Is the core. Now, if you're not building superior experience for your customers, I am very doubtful that you will be able to build a superior experience for your employees, because the end connect that an employee has is with the purpose of existence. I'll give you an example in Lupin. Yeah, you're right, Krish. Throughout this pandemic, or throughout this global shutdown, if there is one industry which is in manufacturing, R&D, end to end, that kept working was pharma. Okay, and that is again because we come under the Essential Commodities Act, like food processing or milk processing and all this. So we were not allowed to shut down. We had to keep operating by law. Okay, and it was not easy, because let me tell you, there are jobs in our industry which cannot be done from home. Like if you have to go and work in an R&D lab and do tests and innovate, you can't work from home. Your work is in the lab, and that lab is over acreage, right, where you have to go. Similarly, if you have to charge a batch, if you have to create a batch and then make tablets or make injections, you have to go and do it in a factory. You can't do that from home, right? Now tell me, Krish, when this pandemic had hit and all of us were at homes, we all wanted to stay at home because you wanted to be safe. Your families wanted you to stay at home. You wanted your family to stay at home. But even during that time, all our manufacturing and R&D employees actually went out and worked without a day stoppage. How cool is that? Of course, in the first 2 or 3 months, we were not operating at 100% efficiency, because some employees and their family members got COVID, or, they were quarantined because somebody else got COVID. So, we were always operating in the first 2 months from 70% to 85%, capacity because of manpower. However, after 2.5 months, now for the past 3.5 months, because we've been in it for 5 months now, we have been operating upward of 92 to 98% in various locations. Well, the threat is still high. Now, why do you think employees do that? It is because they connect themselves with the purpose statement. They say that, look, it's not that I have to worry about my safety, that the company will take care. Okay. But it's my job to continuously keep making medicines that reach the patients who need it the most. So the moment you connect with that purpose, your action becomes, but then your responsibility as an organization. So the amount of money that we had to spend on keeping our employees safe in this pandemic has actually brought our cost base up. But without hesitation, we did that. And I'll tell you examples. Like if there were 40 people traveling in a bus, like we have 14 manufacturing locations in India and another 4 to 6 abroad. So most of the manufacturing locations, you go to transport employees from the city to the manufacturing location, right? So if there were 40 people sitting in a bus, now that bus takes only 15 to 16 because of social distancing. So your number of buses not only doubled, sometimes it also went beyond that. Now, the kind of construction modifications that you had to make, like the cafeteria, all our tables are, separated by an acrylic sheet, so that you have this is a lot of cost that gets added. Each of our manufacturing location now has thermal scanners, because, the gun scanners are no good. We know it, they're not consistent. So what you need is thermal scanners, and the thermal scanner system, which is dovetailed to your attendance and everything, is a very expensive proposition. But the moment you put this in, you keep your employees safe. So the employee says, keeping me safe in this pandemic is not my responsibility, that my company will do and my family will do. but I got to go out and work. That is only possible when you are living your purpose of existence through your other business and people processes. Okay. So I don't know if that example was any good, but these are my thoughts, and that's how it needs to be weaved in. And yeah, Krish, that's my response to your first question.
Great. Thanks, Yash. So I think, we've heard now a little bit about that having a purpose is important, number one, for an organization. Number two, getting that translated into day-to-day work in some ways is critical. And I think we'll look at better ways to do it and what we can do. Number three is how do we really give the platform for employees to really look at their own purpose, either connect to the organization purpose or in some other way, just to ensure that they realize their purpose. So these are the three key things that are there. So let's look at this part. While there's a lot of, big talk, we'll say purpose is that. How do you really make it real for employees? That's something will be keen to know in terms of, any of you can take this on. How do we really make this real to employees? How do what does it, how do you make it relevant to them and make them live it day in and out? What are some thoughts? What have you seen?
Okay,
Maybe
let me go and take a stab at it, Krish, and then I'll come back to listen to the others. You see, again, continuing with what I just talked about, the purpose of existence and how it needs to be weaved in, that itself was an example. But this is where, building a culture starts coming in. Okay. But even before we go there, let me just share with you something that I have learned over the years, how it's so important for HR leaders and CEOs and any other business leader to first understand the difference between climate and culture. Okay. So it's like, if your purpose of existence is the rock, the way I describe it, if that is the rock, then your culture is the landscape around it. Okay. But your climate is like the four seasons, which keep changing. So the climate is more temporary, while as your culture is more permanent. So that's why when we talk about culture, what do we say when we talk about, benchmark company and cultures of societies, etc. We say, oh, this company, the culture is performance oriented. This company, the culture is very caring. In this company, the culture is customer oriented, right? That's a permanent. That comes from your purpose of existence. But when you talk about climate, it's real. It actually changes for an organization, sometimes day to day, but of course not day to day, but at least weeks to months. So you say that, oh, right now, the employees are feeling very demotivated and the morale is down. Now, morale is down has nothing to do with culture. It's the climate. Okay. So let me tell you right now, because of COVID, okay, and the way I have sensed it, I don't know, I would like to learn from my other colleagues. I think the biggest sense I have got from the climate is people, that is employees in the corporate world, are feeling very insecure. They're not only feeling insecure of the health of their loved ones and their health, they're feeling insecure of their job. They're feeling insecure about their income, everything. Okay, because the economy is down and we don't know when it will pick up. So if you're a caring company with a caring culture, okay, what you need to do is you need to pick up on that insecurity and make sure that you start assuring your employees. Okay, you got to assure them. Now, what employees need at this time is assurance.
Yeah.
They don't need, a Zoom party where you get them dressed up in red and white and make them jump up and down. Okay, that's what they're not. They don't need that. So if you're trying to plan that, they don't need that.
They don't need that. Yeah.
And while as there are solutions, there are companies which are offering that right now. What they need is an assure. And how do you assure them? You assure them by first being very sensitive and finding out what is it they need. Like, let me tell you, Krish, and you have got this also from your survey, right? We did not have a dedicated enough focus program for mental health and wellness. We brought that about in our company because of this pandemic. We had a, employee assistance program, and we have the health and wellness programs and all that, but they were all about a gym membership, a yoga session. This pandemic made all that look frivolous. So what people wanted was we created two things. So one is a mental health and wellness program, and the second one we created, Krish, cost us a lot of money, but it has become a benchmark. We created a Liberate platform where we impaneled 350 chest and pulmonary physicians, which are also our doctors, to come online, and within 6 to 8 hours, we provide a free consultation to any of our employee or their family member or their loved one through these 350 chest physicians in all the cities present in India and the world. And that has cost us a lot. One, to create the platform, and secondly, the fees for these consultant to the doctors is reimbursed by us as a company. But that has assured the employees so much. It's amazing. Okay. So I think you need to read the climate, be very sensible and pick up about what is required. Stop doing all that is not required to be done, like jumping up and down and all that. Okay. But do this.
Yeah.
How do you assure people about their health? How do you assure them about their, jobs? How do you assure them about their incomes? Yeah. And that's what made us double the life insurance. That's what made us double our, hospitalization insurance to the people. We said it's all about assuring them. But at the same time, the increments were not the way they were in the past in our company. The number of promotions was not the way it was not. So we had to make that compromise. It's a balancing act. So I don't know if it was any worth or that is what you were looking for with an example, but I'd like to put it like that.
No, I think that was a good example of what you did during COVID. Great to connect this thing. Arif and Shibu, you were talking also in terms of how do we really take this purpose and bring it to day-to-day life? How do we make it come alive to employees?
Shibu, you want to go first?
So I will give an example of what we normally do and what we specifically did around COVID as well. So as I mentioned earlier, there are three tenets that we do, which is pride, purpose, and belonging, whenever it comes to anything to do with our employees. And the purpose comes from this entire thing that, do you understand why this organization exists? Do you understand your role in the organization? And hence, does that inspire you? And does that make you want to do more? Does that make you feel that what you do as part of your priorities also has a larger meaning, also has a larger purpose? Because while we say that's what millennials look for, honestly, that's what all of us look for. All of us look for a life where there's meaning. And so that's one thing we totally focus on in terms of purpose, and that's inbuilt into a lot of what we do as priorities and what the people leaders do. And the second is around pride. It's the pride in my work. Am I adding value to myself? Does doing this work make me an expert in something? Do I know the latest of what is happening? Do I get the recognition for the kind of work that I do? Do I have opportunities for growth? So that's the pride. And the last we said is belonging. And while a lot of us look at inclusion or diversity, belonging is a little broader than that, because here I'm looking at camaraderie. And I'm basically saying that, you're not looking at do I fit in? You're basically saying, I value you for being unique. And your uniqueness is a strength to the organization. And together we become stronger. So those are three main tenets that we do. And some of them would be, a lot of deep initiatives that you run, things which run across years. Some of them, when you build camaraderie, can also be very, very fun and may seem very flippant, but are important. We have a large population just from campus. Most of them stay alone. During COVID, we realized that they really wanted that connect. And a lot of times, people think that their organization identity comes from their campus, the 50-acre campus with the ducks and the swans and whatnot. But a lot of times it's my friend who I'm having coffee with, or somebody I go for a Zumba party with, or whatever. And so we actually did not say this is good or this is bad. We said different people, different needs. Let's just see how best to engage them, especially during these times. And there was this huge element of hyper personalization, so to say, where it was like, I'm not going to assume that you're fine. You may have been somebody who pre-COVID was in office at 7 in the morning, but during COVID, with your kids still at home, for all you know, 7 in the morning is the worst time to pick for your meetings, and we will give you those opportunities to tell us. So we had inclusion dialogues within teams. So there were things you do at team levels, there are things you do at business level, and there are things you do at organization level. That's the way we find, how do you translate that purpose to action? That's some of what we have done. Arif.
Yeah, Krish, I'll just add 2 points. One is quite similar to what Shibu said. In everything which we do, any initiative we lead or any new space we are getting in, we try to make sure that our effort is centered around the purpose. And I'll just take an example. So last year was the first year we decided that we will actually start visiting management institutes. And when we are thinking about how do we make sure that when we visit management institutes, we also bring our purpose to life and make it real. Because if we are able to do that, students will connect to it and will also be able to understand what the organization is all about. We actually covered more than 1,200 students across management institutes in a training program, which was called as Drink Responsibly. So instead of going and making a pre-placement talk, we actually conducted a session on drink responsibly. And the theme was very simple. We celebrate life and spirits is part of it, but being responsible and understanding how that entire thing is processed by your own body and what it means is very important for you as well. So that's one. The other thing where we have started the journey and it's still work in process, but has been very powerful, is really helping individuals to sit down, understand their motivators through a 360-degree inputs, not feedback, but inputs, and really articulate their purpose statement. And I have gone through that exercise. And when I started, I thought there'll be another feedback exercise. And what does it really mean? But when you do that and understand yourself a lot better and articulate your purpose and then get into a conversation on how you'll bring it to life at Diageo, it becomes very powerful and really builds a strong connection with the organization. So these are the two ways we have to try to.
Great, thank you. I think that's fantastic. Now there is an interesting question that Shraddha has asked, Shraddhanjali Rao of SAP. I think she's asked, saying, do we have purpose for different generations? Sunit, anything you guys have worked on? Any thought from you on that?
Purpose. I saw that in the chat window. So purpose of different generations. Here's my view on this question. It's my personal point of view. That I know we talk about multi-generation workforce. We talk about the millennials and Gen Z, and I'm a Gen X myself. But yes, there are different motivations and aspirations, and I think it's a lot related also to the market opportunities that one grows up with. My own sense is that when it comes to something like purpose, which is a very human thing, I would say that the generational lens is not as important, because one is, yes, as an organization, you define something and then you find something for yourself in that. And I think Arif's example was quite great. And I've seen that work. I've done it myself, for myself and with clients. But I would say that I would, and because even if I look at Accenture's example, for instance, and that was a specific example I wanted to talk about in terms of bringing the purpose to life. And that is not specific to COVID times, and in fact it cuts across generations, which is the fact that a lot of us work on projects for clients. That's what we do. And you're working for large commercial organizations, or maybe governments, where the impact is in terms of some dollar value eventually. So a lot of our people say that, look, we talk about improving the way the world works and lives, but how do I see that on the ground? So we have a part of Accenture called Accenture Development Partnerships. And one is obviously corporate citizenship, the social impact, that you can donate time or you can donate money to certain charitable causes. But in the ADP program, what we do, Krish, and I've seen it myself, I've done it myself. So it's across. You can do it as at various leadership levels. People who just joined us from campus 2-3 years ago can do it. So to give you an example, you could say that, look, I want to take 1 year from my normal roles and projects, and I want to go and work with Oxfam in West Africa and help bring sanitable water, or better water facilities to villages over there. And what happens is that It's actually not looked at as some kind of exile posting. It actually has helped people accelerate their careers. It gives them a certain sense of, okay, I'm taking 1 year off and doing this something which is impacting communities directly. And the second thing that they do is, because those projects we do not pro bono, we do them at no profit. So the individuals actually take a haircut on their rewards for that year. So it's a commitment. So you don't do it for just a weekend. You don't do it for just 1 month, 2 months. You do it for a year at a minimum. Some people have actually gone there and made a career in Accenture development partner. One of my mentees, a very successful woman leader in Accenture, she's actually now become a very senior executive in that whole part of the organization at a global level. So that's one thing which we've at least done. And I think I would say at any point of time, I don't have the exact number, but maybe 1 or 2% of our entire global employee base is working on ATP projects.
Okay.
And for instance, I as a leader in my practice, if I have X number of people, that's also good for me because I'm actually helping with that. So that's one tangible example I thought of. So again, coming back to the question that was there, I would say that I don't think it's a generational thing, because as humans, we will all relate to a higher purpose. So I would say that the purpose, at individual level, it has to be personalized, but I won't do different cuts for multi generations. That's my view.
Good. I think so. What you're saying is purpose for an organization is a little broader, but the way it can be expressed for different in terms of how it comes alive could be different for different generations. Yeah, and I think Arif's example of how you get each one to create a purpose statement is pretty interesting. Arif, how does that work? Can you talk a little bit about it in terms of employees and they creating their purpose statements, etc.? So
Yeah, so it starts with Krish here, employees taking inputs on what their motivators are. So 360-degree inputs, not on their strengths and development needs, but how do other people see us excelling? What moments? So when have you seen Arif at his best? What have you seen in terms of Arif getting excited about an idea? So more of understanding motivators and what people get excited about. So that's the first part. Then the individual does the same reflection of looking back over the last few years, how he or she has grown. What moments excited them the best? Where have they enjoyed working? Where have they not enjoyed, and so on. Once all that data is there for the individual, then you sit down with your coach and use that to really create not really a statement, but a clear articulation of what moments, what situations make us feel fulfilled, motivated, excited, and so on. And then you use that input to not necessarily either create a statement or may not create a statement, but articulate clearly that this is what I want to do when it comes to fulfilling why I am here, what I am here for. Some people do write a statement. We don't enforce it. Some people just articulate it that, these are the three things which give me fulfillment, which make me feel that I've contributed and added value, and so on. And then it's about what can organization do. So the next conversation is with the manager on making it real. How can the organization help and enable that? Which actually becomes the most powerful conversation, because then you're actually looking at fulfilling it at the company, and that's how we take it.
okay. Great. I think that's a great example of looking at individual purpose. Yash, let me get back to you. Here's a question, and I think it connects a little bit to what you said. I think the question, if you can read it on the chat, is also which one of our viewers has put, is how do leaders identify what employees need due to changes in climate connected with the purpose? You mentioned a bit about it already, but if you were to just summarize in terms of what are one or two things leaders could do?
They're very simple things, that in my experience, I've seen great leaders do, and a bit of it learning from them that some of us do today. Okay, is they're very simple. So it's like, you have to take the leaf out of marketing. There's a very scientific and a structured way of getting customer insights, right? How do we make sure that we design similar practices and then coach and train leaders on getting employee insights? Okay, so one is there are these surveys and all that we do. Okay, okay, dipsticks for the annual surveys and all that we do. But that only gives you so much. But it's a one-on-one interaction, either in focus groups or skip levels or whatever you do. It's the one-on-one interactions, and what we have is a system known as the check-ins. Okay, where you just do a check-in with your employees. So I'll tell you a simple thing that I do. Okay, we do. We're so busy, right, these days, working from 7 a.m. till 10:30 p.m. With the challenge that if you're working from home, everyone thinks you're. They look at your calendar, you're double parked, triple parked, because that's been one of the pitfalls of working from home. But what we do is, without fail, at least I do with my team and all other leaders do with their teams, okay, is we do a Friday check-in. Okay. So every Friday evening, which is like Friday morning for my teams in the US and Europe, we do a Friday check-in for 1.5 hours where everyone comes. We don't talk about work, nothing. We just ask, how are you feeling? Okay, what do you, and then after that, I follow that up with my skip level one-on-ones with people. Okay. And that's where employees talk and they tell you, that look, I'm really going through a stressful situation. My husband has lost his job and I don't know, and I'm worried that I hope the same doesn't happen to me or to my brother or to my sister who are also in a profession.
Yeah.
You get to know where they're coming from. Now, once you know their insecurities, you then know how to address it. Okay, so you've got to pick it up one-on-one. It's as simple as that. Uh, you can develop various applications, surveys, methodologies for doing that, and that will only give you so much. But it's a one-on-one check-in and an engagement that leaders have, that good leaders have with their people, that you understand their situation. Okay, and as long as you can do it with the team you manage, then you role model it to them. Then they learn from you and they do it again with the teams that they manage, and it just becomes a very good cascading effect. So that's the way I would put it, Krish.
Good. Thanks. Okay, there's one more question, and before I go to Shibu with that question, I was also pretty intrigued by a word that Shibu used called hyper personalization. So that's pretty nice, and I think in a way it's about what the future is. So Shibu, if you were to talk about what does that mean, how could we really bring it alive? So that's the first part, and the second part is a question that one of our viewers has asked is, COVID has changed people, process, and mindset. But has it changed organizational culture too in the short span? So maybe you could talk a little bit about that. So over to you.
Sure. So I guess, the word sounded good, but it pretty much is what Yash was talking about. How do you look at each individual? How do you keep the employee at the center? And, sometimes we tend to broad brush. Sometimes we tend to say, women have this need, or millennials or Gen Z has this need. Now, we all are not defined by one identity. We are defined by multiple identities. It's a confluence of sorts. And only I know what that multiple identity leads to, and hence what my need is and what my circumstances are. So how do we make sure that we have leaders mature enough and processes which nudge the not so mature leaders to do it, because some don't really need the organization processes, they're just naturals and they do it. How do we make sure that we do that and then can cater to what that individual needs? Now, a crisis required us to think about it in a certain way. You couldn't have said that everybody in Bangalore who is COVID positive will be treated like this, right? So we didn't do the broad brush. You went with each individual to see what you need to do. Post-crisis, how can we get those learnings to say, what do we need to do differently? And I guess that's the kind of thing that we've all struggled to do. Sometimes we've used AI to do it. Sometimes we've created apps and tools. Like we have something called Flexperience where we do it. But at the end of the day, it just boils down to, do you have sufficient connect with your employee to know what you need to do for them? And is that something where you check in regularly enough to know that if things are changing and pivoting, and you are able to flex your own style and what the organization can do for that individual? So I guess that's the way you need to do it. Now, doing this at scale cannot be something which is very easy. The minute we look at sustainability and scalability, we say, we need an app, we need technology to do it. And maybe that's true, but the most high touch piece of this is going to be, in addition to the apps and the tools, is going to be that people leader. You know, that last leg, you just have to make sure that you've activated it, you've enabled them enough, you've educated them enough, and they feel inspired to do it, and it does not become a pain for them to be doing something like this. So that's the first part of the question. I think the second part was, has COVID changed people, processes, mindsets? It has, yeah. Did it change org culture too? I think the silver lining in the cloud, and I would request the panel to add in, is it really accelerated digitization. You know, all of us who went in with, this is the 3-year journey and 5-year journey, suddenly figured out what could be done. You know, I always quote this every time I bump into a certain neighbor of mine who's a software engineer. She always says, how come you don't work from home? And I said, I'm in HR. I have to be where the employees are. I cannot work from home. For the last 4 months, I have been working from home. So I think it's busted a lot of myths. It's really made us look at things very, very differently. And that's very difficult to do in an organization culture. Can we bust myths? Can we look at not just what the policies allow us to do? Can we look at how does that make a difference? So I guess for me, those are a couple of things which really changed the whole theme around digitization, busting of the myths, and going into a thing that it's not driven by policies, it's driven by keeping the employee at the center. But would look at the panel if there are any more.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think COVID has changed culture, definitely. I think remote working is one of that. And I think some of those effects could be long lasting. There's one more very interesting question. And this I'm going to ask Sunit and Arif to kind of talk about, both of them. I think, and this is Ganga Priya, who's the head of Ford Service and Ford Center in India. How important is it for organizations to help employees find the purpose? Are organizations expected to do that? And what if their purpose is kind of at conflict? How would you kind of manage it? So Arif and Sunit, between both of you, yeah, thoughts on it?
Sunit, please go first and then I'll add.
I'll take a shot at it, Arif. So, great to get this question from Ganga Priya, old friend. Let me try to. I think it's not a choice anymore, Krish, is my view. I think today, and I, when I start talking about the Accenture example, I think we realize that we need to be more purposeful, and we need to actually make a bold statement around it to our larger stakeholder community and also to our clients and our people, because that's the how people want to relate to organizations today. I can tell you, there are people in my team who actually question me about the work we do for certain industries because of their personal viewpoints, and they have come to me and sometimes asked that please don't staff me on this project. I'm not going to take names of which those industries are. I know this being live streamed. I don't want to get into any trouble. So I don't think it's about it's not a choice anymore. So yes, we'll have to define the purpose, explain it to our individual people, and see how they can relate to it. My view on whether if there's a conflict on the purpose, now typically the purpose is at a very high level, right? I mean, Arif talked about spirits, the spirit of life, and I was talking about Accenture, talking about innovating and improving lives around the world. So I would imagine that someone would definitely find something in that. Now, yes, maybe even if the choice may come down to the fact which already exists, even without stating a purpose, that today people have choices. They may not want to work in a particular type of organization, which could be because of industry or what it does, or maybe what its impact has been on in the environment or whatever it is. So I think that remains. And if you lose those employees, or they decide not to be with you, so be it. I would say that in today's world where if things are transparent, if everything's on social media, I think it's better not to be insecure and be your authentic self as an organization out there, rather than try to hide and say, no, let's keep the purpose hidden, let's not lose them. I think it's better to put it out there, and the people who are aligned to the purpose, let them stay with you, because as Yash's example showed, if that alignment is there, then they'll go beyond the ordinary to do the extraordinary for you. That's my thought. Arif.
So I'll quickly respond to that. And there's another thing which Kirtana has asked about the drivers around the individual and understanding that around in the environment we operate in. And I'll just take a quick example of my own situation. So I work in spirits company, but I'm not a consumer of spirits. So I had this fundamental question as to why am I here and what value am I adding? When I sat down and did the reflection of what motivates me, what gets me excited, and wrote down my own purpose, it was about making a difference in moments which I live, and making a difference to lives of people who are around me, and drawing satisfaction in their growth and their journey. When I articulated that and really looked at how can I bring it to life at Diageo, there were many paths one could take. One could take a path of really being an HR person in my own role. How do I help by creating fulfilling careers for people? But also in the communities I serve and the communities I work in. So what I want to say is that organizational purpose is broader. Every organization has an impact which could be good or bad, depending on how the organization maximizes the good versus the bad. And for an individual to make it real, if one connects that purpose, personal purpose, to organizational purpose, it can become very impactful. Yes, there could be situations where there is a disconnect, and I think it's best for individuals then to move on and really have a more fulfilling life, because if one does that, it still creates a tremendous goodwill for the individual as well as the organization. So I would say we are a context to environment, to our motivators and our upbringing, and bringing it real at workplace through a purpose can really make it more impactful and fulfilling for each of us.
Great. Thanks, Arif. I think that's a fairly wonderful summary. I think what we've covered in this, let's say, 1 hour is basically, I think it's very clear that purpose is becoming very important for individuals. Organizations need to have purpose, but also have a way of getting that purpose translated to everyday life. And that's where you got to really connect at the individual level. And Yash came up with this example, and Shibu also came up with this example about how do you translate the organization purpose at the individual level. And that's an important role that we in HR have to play. And there's equally the other part is individuals have their own purpose. And I think both Sunit and Arif spoke about various examples of Diageo and Accenture, where we also have to provide opportunities for individuals to look at their own purpose and how they can kind of achieve that within the organization and provide that kind of a frame for that. And this is all very important. I think in the last few minutes, both Sunit and Arif have emphasized that, this is the way to go in the future. And I think organizations have to tune in much more, listen to people in terms of what they want to do, and see how we can really be authentic about it. So it's been great. But before I end, I think, I could go on for another hour or so, but I just want each of you to really kind of take a short, just maybe a word or a phrase. If you were to really give an advice to, let's say, the HR people out there, in terms of, what would be 1 or 2 words of advice you would give to really bring this whole thing of purpose alive in their organizations? What would be that kind of, those phrases of advice? Over to each of you.
We go alphabetically with Arif.
So I would say purpose is not abstract. In the world we live in today, it's more real than ever. And we got to believe in it. And if we believe in it, we'll make it real for our employees.
Sure, since it's alphabetical fashion. So I would say having enough conversations around it help different people see different elements of that purpose. And being able to talk about it at every opportunity you get also helps people align to it. So it's clearly it's at least the purpose statements we were talking about, they were not ambiguous. They were very clear. They knew what the true north is. So if there is the true north, which the organization has, how do you engage employees enough by making them participate in it?
Yeah.
Thanks.
I would say, Krish, to HR leaders out there, be bold when you think of the purpose. Be bold and don't be shy, because at the end of the day, that's what will allow you to find that true north, as you said. And if your people are aligned to that, that's when extraordinary results will follow. And today we need more of that than maybe some of the more traditional ways of motivating people, is my belief.
Yeah. Krish, I would say that, it's extremely important for any individual, any human being to not only have a clear purpose for their lives, okay, but also is to understand life itself. And our work and our career is a large part of our life, but it's not just that, okay. So, say for example, if your average lifespan is now 80, 85, okay, active career is 35 to 40 years, okay. So what I would say is, irrespective of whether you have had a purpose or not, but make sure that you have a purpose currently and going forward for yourself, whatever it is. But it has to be something that gives you joy, that gives you peace, and it's something that will keep you healthy so that you can keep others healthy around you. That is what I would like to say in the conclusion.
Excellent. I think, I've learned a lot. I think, it's been a fantastic, a very purposeful hour. Thank you all very much. I think this is very important. It's also an abstract topic. It's not that easy to catch. And sometimes it can remain mission statements or purpose statements on boards or papers and, and stuff like that, or annual reports. But I think what you're all saying is this, that I think we've got to bring it alive. And this is real now. Purpose is real. Individuals have their purpose. We got to get them, express it, connect them to the organizations, and use purpose of the organization as a way of motivating people, because that's what is going to be the future and not the traditional ways. So, folks, I think it's been phenomenal learning for me. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you to each of you. I don't know. So I have to ask Kirtana to thank. Yes. Kirtana, over to you.
So thank you, panel members. I want to share some more details with you before I close. So those of you who have tuned in, so please tune in next Saturday as well at 3 p.m. to listen to the session on wellness, emotional health, and psychological safety. We also have the National Virtual 8th Human Capital Conference on Excellence in New Ecosystem, which will focus on organization, leadership, and culture. Please do join that one. So I would like to thank Krish, Yash, Sunit, Arif, and Shibu for sharing their thoughts today. I would like to thank all the participants for taking time out to tune in to listen to us. I would also like to thank Krish and the NHRD team, Dhananjay, Avinash, Darpan, and Hari for all their encouragement and support in making this discussion happen. Last but not the least, I would like to thank our internet connectivity and our devices for making this a successful discussion. I would like to leave you all with a quote by Larry Page. Make sure everybody in the company has great opportunities, has a meaningful impact, and is contributing to the good of the society. I hope all of you experienced a fun learning session today. I sure did. Have a great weekend, everyone, and tune into more learning sessions on NHRD. Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much, everybody. Yash, Shibu, Sunit, and Arif. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Bye. Lovely. Thank you.